She's not, obviously,
Yeah.
she's not aware that that the camera is rolling, and so we'll check back in when she's ready to give us an update. But that just shows that we've got crews standing by all across the region there at Cal OES. We've got crews who are fanning out really all across the region as well. Our chief meteorologist, Monica Woods, and meteorologist Tracy Humphrey are also standing by to give us an update of exactly where this was and what happened. What can you tell us, you all?
Well, we still know that it was a 5.9, and that was right around 3:49. The other thing that's been developing throughout the afternoon is the phantom quake that we felt.
So initially we all heard about the 4.8 that was happening in Stockton. Well, after we did further research, and that's what happens after the initial quake, we found out that this was actually a phantom quake. So it wasn't an actual earthquake. It was actually some of the ripple impact of the 5.9 that was felt in that area. So apparently they have seismometers that are supposed to be getting the depth and the location. But sometimes machines make mistakes. So you needed a human element to come in and say, that's not an actual earthquake. So they have made the adjustment on the USGS website. So they've taken out the 4.8 and we're left with the 5.9 and all of the aftershocks that are coming along with it. I counted 29 separate aftershocks since the 5.9.
And we also know from Dr. Lucy Jones and several other seismologists that they said this is very typical of this size of earthquake, nothing to be too concerned about. And the farther we go from the actual point of the main earthquake, the better off we are that we won't see a huge one that will follow it. So things are starting to improve here as we get almost to the 2-hour mark of the initial point of the 5.9 earthquake that happened just off to the east of 395, where we have reports and actual visuals now of a rock slide there.
We had the rock slides. They have a huge, when people say boulders, you think, okay, is it really a boulder? Is it a rock? No, it's a boulder. It's like this large. People are going along in the video, and it almost looks like a video game where you're trying to jump over something.
Right.
That is how huge they are. So imagine you're driving on 395 and all of a sudden rocks start coming towards you. This is a serious event. But something else. I've lived here a long time. I haven't seen this.
A cluster like this.
No,
absolutely,
I have not.
where you can see just a little bit closer in perspective. We even had one at 4:58, a 4.0. That was an aftershock. That wasn't even the main earthquake, of course, sending off ripples all the way out towards Stockton. So who felt it? Well, this is a really great tool. This is on the My Shake Alert app, and you can download it. It's a great tool not only for you to have to alert you of incoming earthquakes. It doesn't give you a whole lot of time, but at least it gives us something.
Well,
and it's also great for research. So what you're looking at here is a map of where the actual earthquake happened. Now that's Lake Tahoe right there. Just off to the south, there's 395. So the darker the green, the stronger people were feeling it. And these are all reports from you. You've been reporting this, saying this is what I felt. This is the intensity that I felt. This was the damage that happened. So you can see it extends through Rockland, Sacramento, a little bit less out towards the Bay Area, but Bay Area folks are feeling this earthquake of the 5.9 over towards the east side of California, right on the border, down throughout the Sierra. Now the purple is a little bit weaker here, but you can see certainly right through Alpine, parts of Tuolumne, as well as Mono County, feeling some big parts of this, as well as east of the crest into parts of the Tiobe National Forest, and then up towards it looks like Placer, Nevada counties also feeling it pretty strong.
Now I want to say, are we purple or are we blue? Sacramento.
Generally speaking, pretty much the same color. That's kind of the weaker intensity. And think about what we felt.
What I felt here was not weak. I have lived in the Bay Area, so I felt a fair number of earthquakes. What I felt was distinctive. It was long. It was protracted. And there was no doubt in my mind what it was. So initially I'm thinking, now I know why they have rock slides here.
Right.
Because if that's a more intense color and they felt more intensity, I bet here it was really rocking and rolling.
Right. So any of you can participate in this if you just go to the My Shake app and input. They're asking for data because so many people did feel this one, that it really helps to not only give us a better depiction of what this earthquake did, what this type of fault line, you were saying it was one that...
Classic normal faulting that's when you have grazing of two plates against one another.
Okay.
And apparently it puts enough stress on those plates that it extends out to the crust. And that is why it is felt for such a large range.
And we're talking over 100 miles.
Well,
this was felt all the way from the Sierra Spine over towards the Bay Area. So this is quite an extensive area, not just east or west feeling,
Yes.
north and south as well. Because also, I know, Tracy, you were seeing that the fault line ran on a north to northeast
trajectory.
line.
And so it kind of just grazed up against it. But I want to tie in the heat. So we know that people had these earthquakes and these aftershocks. So you hope that no one lost power.
Right.
Because we are looking at triple-digit highs. We hope that this is just a one event for today because we do have an excessive heat warning.
Right.
So we do have triple-digit highs. So that's also something else I always think about when I'm looking at this.
And one more thing, because I know we're going to throw it back to our anchors, is you are going to see that we were feeling more effects on the north side of this as we look at this map. We've got concentric circles that go out from the epicenter, and so we're going to inherently feel that more on the direct line right around the epicenter there. And as it starts to ripple out, and you mentioned this, think about it, we are starting to see more on the weaker scale here, but that was quite some shaking there to feel it all the way out over 100 miles from the actual epicenter where we feel the strongest amount of shaking. Okay.
It's been a busy day.
It's been a busy day. Okay, we're going to regroup. We'll send it over to Chris and Madison.
All right, Monica and Tracy, thank you so much. Now, again, we are hearing from seismologists and scientists with the USGS right now. We want to listen in to get the very latest on what we are dealing with right now.
Of the Sierra Nevada frontal bounding fault system. So it's what constitutes that massive, majestic scarp that you see if you drive up Highway 395, visiting places like Owens Valley, Bishop, Mammoth Lakes, June Lake, all the way to Reno. So this was a small earthquake along essentially that whole fault system, and that's a very active structure. It forms one of the highest relief mountain fronts in the United States.
Great, thank you for the question, Ron. And just a reminder, if you guys have had your questions answered, then just go ahead and lower your hand appropriately. Next, Dale. And Dale, can you please also let us know your affiliation?
Of course. Hi, Dale Kassler, Sacramento Bee, and sorry about the video. I just like to call attention to myself, I guess. You sort of touched on this a few minutes ago, but I mean, we're 200 miles away here in Sacramento. We usually don't feel earthquakes at all around here, and it's as if everyone around here felt it. Was there something about this earthquake that, for some reason, it just spread and spread and spread?
Yeah, based on the measurements that we have, this is not out of the ordinary earthquake in terms of the shaking intensities, either instrumentally recorded or reported to our Did You Feel It system, based on people's eyewitness shaking experiences. I think some things that may make this notable, it was a fairly large earthquake, and it's worth remembering that the magnitude scale is logarithmic, and every unit increase in magnitude is a 10 times increase in the size of the earthquake, which ultimately means that a magnitude 5.9 earthquake shakes much more strongly and has a much wider reach than many others. So other comparable examples to this one would be things like the Monte Cristo earthquake last May, so a year and a couple months ago. And I think that was pretty widely felt, although it was in the middle of the night. So another factor here may be that it was at 3:30 in the afternoon, a time when probably people are sitting around, awake, attentive. A lot of people just at work, basically, and were awake to perceive the waves from this large earthquake.
Good.
Thank you. And if I could follow
Okay, we
up,
have been listening in to the USGS, and I want to also let you know we do have Cal OES standing by. We will show you that shot, and as soon as they begin talking, we will take them live. Meanwhile, I want to just share some of the feedback that we are getting from people who are writing in for us. In Pioneer, California, earthquake lasted at least 30 seconds with 2 aftershocks. Picture frame fell off the wall and broke. Grandfather clock kept chiming. Kathy Weaver in Modesto says the earthquake was shaking her couch she was sitting on there. Her daughter and granddaughter felt it in Oakdale. You can always text us if you have some experiences you'd like to share at 916-321-3310. One of the things I really want to share is this one. She says, I'm 80 years old, and so this was very scary for me. She says, it's a reminder to check in on your elderly relatives and friends, especially when something like this happens. They may be disoriented or really not know what's happening. And so you just want to check in on them and make sure that they are doing okay, because it was really unnerving for so many of us. We felt it here at the station. Again, we've got crews standing by. Cal OES is standing by. Let's listen in.
Great. And Lori, thank you for being able to explain what's happening here. Can you give us a recap of what we felt here in Northern California?
Absolutely. So at about, 3:49, there was about a 5.9 magnitude earthquake up in the Alpine in Nevada, on the Nevada border. And we felt the shaking as far away here as Sacramento. I myself, in this building, second floor, felt the shaking, and I dropped, got under my desk, and covered my head and held on.
Oh my gosh. So what was that experience like for you? What was going through your mind? And of all places for that to happen at Cal OES?
Well, as the Deputy Director of Planning, Preparedness, and Prevention, I am over the earthquake and earthquake early warning branches here at Cal OES. So the first thing, of course, kicked in. First, drop, cover, hold on. Then when shaking subsides, go check my staff. And then the next thing I did was I came down here to the State Operations Center, and we immediately started situational awareness, gathering information from local offices of emergency management, law enforcement, fire, and other places.
Great. And what have you found so far? Have we found any damage, any other significant reports coming out of this?
So there have been reports of rock slides, also of items coming off of shelves in grocery stores and whatnot. A lot of shaking was felt here at Cal OES. Of course, we all have the MyShake app. We encourage folks to download that from Google Play or the Apple Store. And we had folks in the San Joaquin Valley that received alerts. By then, it had reduced to about a 4.8 magnitude shaking. So that's still significant.
Yeah, that is significant. So
Well, we've been listening in now to our Cal OES spokesperson here in Sacramento, monitoring the situation of this 5.9 earthquake. Felt really far reach from where that epicenter was, hundreds of miles away. Let's go over to our Brandon Ritteman now, talking to an expert, Brandon, on the situation. We know about that phantom earthquake that happened, the 4.8 that was originally reported in Farmington. What are you learning tonight?
Yeah, so it's interesting. I spoke to an old source of mine. His name's Dr. Graham Kent at the University of Nevada, Reno Seismology Center. And he explained that phantom quake happens because of the algorithms the computer systems use. Basically, they have this giant network of sensors, and when they start detecting activity, the computer tries to pinpoint on the map where it thinks those were. And what happens is if you get a lot of shaking, little quakes back to back, sometimes that can trick those sensors, or rather the computer that's reading the sensors, into thinking that a wave it picks up maybe in a distant location was in fact its own separate quake, and that's what happened there. That's why we saw that 4.8 pop up on the map outside of Stockton. Really, it was just some of the shaking from the almost 6.0 that was on the other side of the Sierra Nevada mountain range. Now, we heard a little bit of talking earlier today about why was this so strong for people here in Sacramento, given that distance, almost 200 miles away from here. And one thing that Dr. Ken explained to me is, in addition to everything that you heard the USGS person say, is that it has to do with the makeup of the Earth's crust between Sacramento and where this quake was. The Sierra Nevada mountain range. It's basically a giant slab of granite. It's solid, so when there's shaking on one part of it, it transmits, through all that material to over here really easily, and that's why in the foothills you would have felt this really strongly, and even here in Sacramento, as we get into the valley, we can still feel that shaking as well. He said that essentially what we felt today would be like 1 magnitude more in the Bay Area, so think like a Loma Prieta quake in the Bay Area. That's how we'd experience it here, because it's softer ground between here and the bay. So we can kind of get it from both ends being here in the Central Valley. The other thing I asked him to do was just take a look at the map, and he said what he was seeing was textbook, but that's concerning because of what this fault is like.
This is a classic aftershock sequence. So you'll get maybe a 6, and then you get a 4, and then some 3s, and a 3.5, and then you get another 4, and then you get some 2s, and it just bounces around. Now, occasionally, maybe in our area, maybe upwards of 20-25% of the time, it could be a foreshock for a bigger earthquake, an hour down the road, a day, even a month. The probabilities get less and less the further away you get away from it. But that was a big jolt. The last 5.9 we've had in the area was back in the mid 90s.
Yeah, so 20-25% chance that this is actually not the biggest quake. Now, he's not trying to alarm anyone when he says that, but for some perspective, he says any garden variety fault in the world, you're talking about a 1 in 20 chance, but that's more like a 1 in 4 or 1 in 5 chance that we could have a stronger quake yet to come. As he explained, the chances of that happening get less and less every hour that goes by. So let's hope some more hours go by without anything.
Well, and Brandon, right before we did this Facebook Live, you were saying even more earthquakes are happening. We're seeing more aftershocks, right? A 4.0 that just hit?
Yeah, just before we started this broadcast, there was about a 4.0 that hit out there. So the aftershocks continue. My folks live up in the Tahoe area, and they were feeling, when I was just on the phone with them before we started, same as one of our viewers described, the chiming of the clock, shaking things. They didn't have anything fall off the wall there, being a lot closer to the quake than we are and on that solid ground. But still, they're feeling each one of these aftershocks as they come. Some of those aren't making it all the way down here.
Wow, what an unsettling feeling.
Oh my goodness, our Brandon Ritterman reporting for us tonight. Brandon, we thank you. And it's with that perspective, it kind of explains why we're doing this wall-to-wall breaking news coverage. Yeah. Just because, you certainly hope that it's done.
Oh, yeah.
But you do have that chance that there could be more to come. And that's why we just want to make sure that we are keeping people informed, especially given that so many people in the Valley felt this. Being in this region, being in California, people say, well, maybe you expect earthquakes every now and then. But when you have the type of thing that we're seeing with this, where it's just so widespread in these clusters that we're seeing across the region, we just want to make sure that we're getting you the very latest information, and that we're also trying to paint a picture for where we're seeing some of the reports, okay? Yep. So to help us do that, we want to go over to Andy Judson, because Andy, I know you've had a chance to speak to some people who actually felt the shaking.
Yeah, Chris, I've been monitoring all of our viewer reactions on this Facebook Live, as well as right after when the earthquake hit on social media. We're seeing folks feeling it, saying they're feeling it everywhere from Modesto, Lodi, Tracy, Stockton. I said on our Facebook Live comments, I was like, where else are you guys feeling it? We have Galena, who said she felt it in Newman, Farmington, just all over the place, obviously here in Sacramento. I've been monitoring on our social media. We have Julia, who said she thought a car had hit her house. It knocked all of the paintings sideways. We have another viewer who said he works in a warehouse, and he said that the boxes were falling and he was trying to move and not get hit by them. So some dramatic experiences for a lot of folks. And we had a viewer, ABC 10 viewer, an Orangeville resident, Sally. She said she was literally so shaken by the earthquake that she thought she was having a stroke. We've had a lot of different reactions like this from hearing from viewers like you. And before she realized that she wasn't having a stroke, it was actually an earthquake. And I actually had the opportunity to speak with her on the phone immediately after the earthquake hit. Take a listen.
I sat down in my recliner and just kind of reclined back and was relaxing. And all of a sudden, I started to feel this immense shaking in my chair. I thought maybe a large truck was going by. But then I started to look around my room, and things were moving. Like I have a flower arrangement that was rattling. The blinds on my window was rattling. My workout equipment, I have a treadmill thing that was moving back and forth. I thought, okay, this is it. I'm having a stroke.
Now, I was seeing from different viewers, some have said they just recently moved to California and this is their first earthquake experience. Other viewers, like Sally, told us that they have experienced earthquakes in our area before, like Loma Prieta in 1989, but she lives in Orangevale. So she said she was especially shocked that she felt it there, and she said she even heard rumbling when the earthquake first hit, and so she thought that a truck was coming, so that was kind of why she said there was a little bit of confusion. For now, I'm going to send it back to you, Chris and Madison.
Oh, Andy, thank you. Well, we just had Tracy Humphrey come over and give us some updated information. So we do know now this earthquake, originally reported in Nevada, really close to that border, is actually now been corrected to a 6.0. So we now have hit the 6.0
Going
magnitude.
from 5.9 to 6.0.
Yes, and the 6.0 is significant. 5.9 is significant too, but even the 6.0 is definitely significant. And the epicenter is Markleeville, California. So we do know now the earthquake is in California. And again, that ripple effect, more aftershocks being reported. We were just hearing from that. We had a really good question come into us. We'll have to look into it more. But David's asking, remember when all those clusters of earthquakes were happening in Truckee not too long ago? He points out it was right around a heat wave type situation. So wondering if the heat has to do with these earthquakes, and wondering too if the cluster of earthquakes in Truckee was a precursor to what we're experiencing today.
Well,
so fascinating question.
It is a fascinating question, and we've got a team of meteorologists standing by. We'll see if we can't get David an answer to that question. And one of the things is we're talking about the epicenter. We are starting to get some reports near that area. Sally Rosen, who owns a popular burger restaurant in Walker near the epicenter, said her 2-year-old was napping in her arms in her home behind the restaurant when the earthquake hit. She says, we felt the shaking of the building and we didn't quite know what it was. And then she says it kept going. It was pretty intense and scary for the family. So they actually ran out of the house as fast as they could, ran to the restaurant because at first they wanted to make sure they get the gas shut off so that you wouldn't have other damage and things of that nature as a result of all that shaking that they were experiencing. And remember, if you have your own cases or things that you want to report in connection to this, you can always text us at 916-321-3310. You can weigh in right here on the comment section on Facebook and on YouTube. We are going to be following this throughout the evening on air and online at abc10.com across all of our social media platforms. It's something that really has caught people off guard because as we work through this thing, we're starting to see that this information is really developing by the second, isn't
Absolutely.
it? As we saw, we just are getting new updates even as we speak about this.
Well,
case.
initially we thought it was a 4.8 near Farmington. Now we're hearing it's a 6.0 near Markleeville, California. So again, things are changing by the minute. But again, the good news is tonight we're not hearing of any injuries, any reports of damage to buildings or roads. But we do know there is a rock slide that's forcing some road closures up in the Sierra. Our meteorologists have been tracking that tonight for us. But we do have so many people right here just on our Facebook. Thank you so much for commenting and sharing your experience, saying where you felt it in Ceres and Modesto, West Sac, Upper Magalia, Ceres again, Sacramento. I mean, this is so widespread. Hundreds of miles we're talking about. From here to the epicenter, it's about 200 miles or so.
Debbie in Rancho Cordova. Debbie, we thank you for reporting in for us as well. Nikki saying she felt it totally in Sacramento, says they were sitting on the couch and could feel it shaking beneath us as they were watching TV. All of these reports, Roseville even coming in, the fountains at Roseville saying that they felt the shaking there. And that's why we are going to stay on top of this thing. And we're going to be monitoring just to make sure that as these aftershocks